Today, we live in a global, multicultural world where we are interacting with people from different cultural backgrounds on a daily basis. They may be your colleague, or someone providing a service to you, or a client, or a friend, or even a family member. This is why cultural diversity is critical to your company's success. Increasing your company's cultural diversity means not only gaining more perspectives and a wider range of experience, but it also improves your ability to reach out effectively to a wider range of customers. In fact, according to PwC's 18th Annual Global Survey, 85% of CEOs have said that having a diversified and inclusive workplace population improved their bottom line. And according to a recent study by the McKinsey Global Institute, ethnically diverse companies are likely to perform 35% better. Cultural diversity programs are useful in a wide variety of contexts. They can be used for team building when you have multicultural teams. They can be used for sales and marketing when you have customers from different cultural backgrounds. They can be used for recruiting to build the best multicultural workforce. They can be used to identify the best people to send to work in another culture. They can be used to identify the areas of greatest potential cultural conflict between different groups, and then do focused, targeted training on those specific issues. And they can be used for train-the-trainer programs for your diversity and inclusion teams. But cultural diversity can lead to a great many problems if not handled correctly. It's great to put an emphasis on hiring people from different cultural backgrounds, but if your company doesn't have adequate programs in place, this can actually lead to situations such as harmful cultural biases and stereotypes, poor teamwork, inadequate communication, differences in leadership styles, differences in conflict resolution styles, misunderstandings, and a myriad of other cultural conflicts. Traditionally, these issues have been addressed by providing cultural training programs that focus on teaching people from other cultures about the culture of the country or company they will be working in. So, a Chinese employee is trained about American culture when they work in an American company, or a German manager is trained about Indian culture when they're transferred to an office in India. This method of dealing with cultural differences may work if there are only two cultures involved. But today, most medium to large-sized companies will have 5, 10, 20, or even more different cultures working together in the same company, and often in the same offices. And in this kind of environment, this traditional approach to cultural training falls apart. Consider. Let's say a particular office in the United States has hired employees from 4 different cultural backgrounds. A person from China, a person from Brazil, a person from India, and a person from Italy. All 4 of them are given training about American culture. And then they're expected to work together. The first problem with this is that a 1 or 2 day training is not going to change their cultural behaviors. Changing culture-based behaviors takes time. But there's an even bigger issue that most people don't really think about. Sure, the Chinese person has been taught about American culture, but they haven't been taught about Brazilian culture or Indian culture or Italian culture. The same holds true for the Brazilian, the Indian, and the Italian. And none of the American employees have received any training about the cultures of their international colleagues. This is a recipe for disaster. The expectation is that all of these people from very different cultural backgrounds are supposed to just suddenly change overnight. But that is not going to happen. So while the company has addressed one potential source of conflict, understanding American culture, they've ignored all of the other ones. And there is yet another even bigger problem with these traditional programs, because most of them teach culture by relying on cultural stereotypes. American culture is like this, and Iranian culture is like this. This reinforces biases that people may have about those cultures, and emphasizes how they are different, weird, strange, exotic, etc. Diversity is supposed to be about eliminating stereotypes and biases. We do this when dealing with gender diversity, racial diversity, LGBTQ diversity, and many other areas. Yet when it comes to dealing with cultural diversity, we tend to rely too much on a traditional style of cultural training, which actually reinforces those stereotypes and biases. This is not going to create real cultural diversity. And that's where the language of culture comes in. We have developed a cultural diversity training system which entirely does away with stereotypes. reveals and deals with biases, and creates a universal platform for people of all different cultures to better understand each other and work together effectively, to build truly multicultural teams that are able to capitalize on the strengths of each team member. Why do we call ourselves the language of culture? Because for too long, culture has been taught in much the same way that languages are. If you go to India, you may learn to speak Hindi and understand Indian culture. If you later go to Germany, being able to speak Hindi won't help you understand German, and understanding Indian culture won't help you understand German culture. You have to start over from ground zero. But if that's how you've learned about culture, then you've been learning about it all wrong. Because culture should not be taught as if it is many different languages. Instead, culture should be considered as one language, which simply has many dialects. Once you learn how to identify and understand those different cultural dialects, you can more easily learn to understand and adapt to any culture, even if it's one you know nothing about. When you learn to speak the language of culture, you will find a whole new world of opportunity opens up to you. The key to this is cultural intelligence. Cultural intelligence is a relatively new field of study, but has yielded tremendous advances in how we understand and learn about different cultures. The field of cultural intelligence began with some simple questions. What are the differences between people who are able to adapt to different cultures very easily and those who find it very difficult? Is there a way to identify people who will adapt to other cultures more easily? And is there a way to train other people to improve their own ability to do so? Cultural intelligence doesn't deal with specific cultures. It deals with underlying principles. It builds a foundation upon which you can build your knowledge of other cultures. Consider emotional intelligence. 25 years ago, executives were given training in things like leadership skills, communication skills, team building, etc. But the results were very mixed. Some people did great, but others failed miserably, regardless of the quality of the training. Then we discovered emotional intelligence and realized that if you were training someone who had a low EQ, they were unlikely to benefit from those kinds of training. If they are unable to control their own emotions, or lack self-awareness of their emotional reactions, or are unable to recognize and respond properly to the emotional reactions of others, how are they going to be an effective leader, communicator, or team builder? But if we first build a foundation of improving their emotional intelligence, and then give them training in leadership, communication, and team building, the results will be far more effective. The exact same is true of learning about culture. If someone has low cultural intelligence, they will have real difficulty learning about, understanding, or adapting to other cultures. But if you first build a foundation of improving their cultural intelligence, and then give them training about other cultures, the results will also be far more effective. And that's what the language of culture does. We teach effective, meaningful cultural diversity by teaching the foundational principles of cultural intelligence. We also specifically tackle issues of cultural stereotypes and cultural biases, with the goal of teaching your staff how to view every person as a unique individual. More than that, we take it a step further. In 2016, researchers looked at the results of 260 studies about diversity training, and they found that there was one key factor that figured larger in the effectiveness of those programs than any other: long-term training. What they found was that typical 1 or 2 day training programs generally had great responses and feedback immediately following the training, with many people excited about what they had learned. But if you went back 6 months later to look at how effectively that training had actually been implemented, very little had actually changed. Why? In the conclusion written by the researchers, right after the training, people change their beliefs and behaviors to some extent, but they acquire even more in terms of knowledge. As time passes, people will remember the new knowledge, but their beliefs and behaviors tend to revert back to how they were before the training. They concluded that in order to bring about truly effective change, it was necessary to have a long-term, systematic plan to actually implement the knowledge gained in the initial training, and a tracking system to monitor how effectively it was being implemented. So, besides offering the more traditional 1 or 2 day training programs, We also offer our clients the option to work with them on a more long-term basis, helping them to design and implement programs to bring about truly effective and sustainable change in their organization. We have our own unique cultural assessment tool that we can use to give you concrete, quantifiable data about the participants, which can be used to effectively identify not only any individual's cultural orientations in many different categories, but also identify the areas of greatest potential conflict between different people. This enables us to do very targeted and much more effective training and to maximize results. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch our video. We welcome your comments, suggestions, and questions, so please feel free to contact us. You can contact us by email at contact@languageofculture.net or by phone toll-free at 1-833-537-1117.